everyone. This is Mrs. Shaw, and today we're going to be solving for y. So this equation, y plus 3 equals 8. And we like to have it in our chart here, what is happening to y. Well, for y then, we are adding 3. And we know that to solve an equation, we need to do the opposite operation backwards. Here, there's only one operation that happened, so we need to do the opposite of adding 3 is subtracting 3. So here we have our fence or our force field, and we're going to subtract 3 from both sides. And we know that 3 minus 3 cancels, and we're left with y equals negative 8 minus 3 is negative 11. Remember, it's always great to check your answers. And so if we take our equation, and instead of the variable y, we know we've got negative 11. And in our calculators, or in our, well, we could figure out that negative 11 plus 3 is equal to negative 8. And does that equal negative 8? Yes, that checks. On here, what is happening? We're going to solve for y. Here y, again, is being multiplied by 5. But it's also being added with 3. So we want to make sure we do the operation, the opposite ones. We want to go backwards. So we're going to start at the bottom here. And we're going to, the opposite of add 3 is subtract 3. We're going to do that first. Subtract 3 from both sides. 3 minus 3 cancels, and we end up with 5y equals negative 11. Okay, so we've done this one. Now, we still need to do the opposite of multiplying by 5, which is dividing by 5. So we're going to divide both sides here by 5. And we know 5 divided by 5 is 1. And we're going to end up with y equals, and we have another one of these fractions, which is just fine. This is reduced as far as it goes, and we're going to be doing a lot more with fractions. They're our friends, and we can plug that back in. This part is where we can use our calculator. It's very helpful. And, okay, I'll leave it back up here anyway, so all this stuff, that'll be easier. All right, we know our answer here. So we are going to plug, our answer was negative 11 fifths. So we're going to plug that in for y. We're going to have 5 times negative 11 fifths plus 3. Is that going to equal negative 8? We're going to see if this is a true statement. Pull out your calculators, and when you type it in, or we can do fractions here. This is the same as 5 divide 5. Well, this is going to be, if we multiply numerators across, we're going to have negative 55, and multiply denominators, and we're going to have 1 times 5 is 5. We're still going to have plus 3 equals negative 8. We're going to check here. Negative 55 divided by 5 is negative 11, plus 3, is that negative 8? Negative 11 plus 3 is negative 8 equals negative 8. Yes, that checks. And you're welcome to do that right at the beginning with the calculator. It might go a little bit faster for you. All right. Whoops. All right. Here. What is happening to y in this one? Well, y is being multiplied by 3. We see that. But we're also adding 6x. Ooh. We know if we follow our same steps that we've been doing, this works out just fine. This is where this short chart comes really in handy. All right, so we're going to do our same steps. 3, the first thing that's happening to our y is being multiplied by 3. And then the next thing that was happening with our y is we were adding 6x. We're adding that whole term. All right, so we're writing them both down. And we're going to do our same steps. We're going to still solve this by doing the opposite operation backwards. Okay, so we're going to still have our force field, our fence. We're still going to start at the bottom. It's the opposite of adding 6x. We're going to start at the bottom and go up here. And it's the opposite of adding 6x is subtracting 6x. We're going to take it from underneath its like term there. And over here on this right side, there isn't a term that has an x with it. So we're just going to subtract it at the end. All right? So 6x minus 6x cancels, and we know we'll have 3y equals negative 18 minus 6x. All right, we finished that one. Let's move on to the opposite of timesing 3, which would be dividing 3. Whatever we do, here's our force field still. Whatever we do on one side, we have to do on the other. And I'm going to show a couple different ways on this. 3 divided 3 goes to 1, and you end up with y equals. We have to remember here that this 3 is being divided into both the negative 18. This 3 is the negative 6x is also being divided by, let's use a different color here, black. It's also being divided, both the negative 18 is being divided by 3, and the negative 6 is being divided by 3. So we're going to do this to start with this red here. Negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. And the negative 6x divided by 3 is minus 2x. One thing we talked about last, even when we were doing expressions, if we just look at this side of the right side of the equal sign, we just look at this right side and we look at this, is that we talked about writing it in the best way, and which would be putting a constant at the end. But in order to do that, remember, we like changing our subtraction to an add, a negative. And remember, when we add, we can write it in the order that we would like. Adding has commutative properties, so we can switch. Instead of negative 6x plus negative 6 plus negative 2x, we can write it as negative 2x plus negative 6, or even just minus 6. We're going to talk more about this in a minute. All right, this one, when we're solving for y, this is being multiplied. Y is being multiplied by 3. There's only one y in this, and so we can put it through our box, and it's being multiplied by 3. That's the only thing that's happening to the y. We're going to do the opposite operation, and we're going to divide by 3. Oh, I forgot the other slide to show you both ways. So I'm going to show you here that dividing both sides by 3 can be written like this. We're going to divide both sides by 3. And I'll show you on this one since I forgot on the last one. We know 3 divided by 3 is 1. We're going to get y equals. And we know we can still, if you prefer, we can still do the 30x divided by 3 is 10x. And we can still do the negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. If it helps, you can always write that minus here as an add and negative. And that helps, so we can see that negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Or minus 2, either way, plus negative. However that you like to write that. All right, I'm going to show another way when we're dividing here, dividing both sides by 3. That's the same, and sometimes it's easier to write. You're dividing everything in the equation by 3. So sometimes it's just easier to write them separate like this. And with the subtraction, it's always nice and helpful to do some adding and negative. All right, so we divided over here by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so it gives us our y. 30x divided by 3 is 10x. And negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. Okay, what we need to talk about for this lesson is slope-intercept form. I kind of got us started on that a little bit without really specifically calling it that. So what is slope-intercept form? Slope-intercept form is usually written as y equals mx plus b, where your m is the slope, because when we use this to graph lines, the m is our slope of our line, and the b is our y-intercept. That's where we would cross the y-axis when we do some graphing. All right. Whoops. That's it. Another way we like to write it, because sometimes this M and B get confusing with having more letters in there. So a lot of times we just like to show it's a blank X plus blank. And we know that numbers will go in that blank, in those blanks right there. So Y equals blank X plus blank. This is the a Y-intercept form that we like to use. All right. So what's important about the Y-intercept form is how it's written. It's written in a specific way. Y equals comes first. Okay? This is very, very important. That Y equals comes first. How it's written matters. The next is we're going to have this blank and X. So we might have a number being times by X in here. And sometimes those numbers can vary what that might be. It might be a fraction. It might be a 1, which sometimes we wouldn't write. Okay? Or it might be a 0. And then we'll talk about those in the future. So, all right. Then we have the number at the end. And this is the Y-intercept. This is a constant number. It's not multiplied by anything. And it comes at the end. It is last. All right? This right here, sometimes we will have plus R constant at the end, and sometimes it will be a minus or subtract. All right, let me see here. All right. Sometimes there won't be any numbers there. So if that happens, okay, that would be like a Y equals X. Well, what is Y equals X? Well, it's still in slope-intercept form because it's like the number in front of our X is a 1, and then we're adding a 0 at the end, just like right here. Okay? Y equals 1x plus 0. We don't need to write the 0 at the end, and we don't need to write the 1. So it's just Y equals X is an equation that is in slope-intercept form. Okay, let's try this one. We're going to solve for Y. What is happening with Y? Well, we're subtracting 3x from Y. Okay? We're subtracting 3x from Y. That's the only thing that's happening with our Y. So to do the opposite of that, okay, the opposite of that, there's only one thing happening, but the opposite would be adding 3x to both sides. So we're going to add 3x. To the left side, we put it with the like term. On the right side, there is an x there already, so that's where we're going to add our 3x. We're going to put it underneath the like term. Negative 3x plus 3x cancels, and we're left with Y equals, what is x plus 3x? Let's have a 1 there. 1x plus 3x is 4x, and we still have our 2. Okay? Is this already in Y-intercept form? It is. We have our Y equals first, our number with our X, and our constant number at the end. This is in our slope-intercept form. All right, so Y here is being multiplied by negative 3. So we're going to put that, it always helps to, let's change this subtraction here to add a negative. Then we can tell here, it's easier to tell that Y is being multiplied by negative 3. Then this 9x is positive, so we know that it's being adding 9x. Okay? We're going to solve this. We're going to start at the bottom and go up. We're going to go backwards. We're going to do the opposite operations backwards. Instead of adding 9x, we're going to, here's our force code. We're going to subtract 9x from both sides. Oops, let me add. Okay, so we're going to subtract 9x from both sides. This 12 does not have an x with it. It is not a like term, so we're just going to subtract 9x at the end. All right, so 9x minus 9x cancels, and we're left with negative 3y equals 12 minus 9x. Well, we finished our first step in solving, but now we need to do the opposite of timesing by 3, which is by negative 3. We need to do the opposite of timesing by negative 3, which is divide by negative 3. And remember, we're going to do that on both sides, but it's easier to just write it for each term, negative 3. And this subtracting 9x, any subtraction, we need to change that to adding negative. That helps a lot. Okay, negative 3 divided negative 3 is 1. Y equals 12 divided negative 3 is negative 4. And then we are going to have our plus negative 9x divided negative 3 is positive 3x. Looking at this, how this answer is here, is this in slope-intercept form? Do we have our y equals first? Yes. Oh, we need our x term to be the next term. Since there's an addition here, we just can rewrite it as y equals, whoops. So we're going to rewrite it, we'll have y equals, we can put our x term first, we take the sign that's with it, the 3x is positive, and then the 4 is negative, so we just minus 4. And our answer here is written in slope-intercept form. All right. This is a level 3, but that's all right. We can do these. We just follow this step. This chart saves us. It helps us in every way. We're going to look first here. How to solve for y. Oh, there's a y on both sides there. Mom's in one room and Dad's in the other room, and they're giving us chores, so we need to combine those together. So we like to look at which one, and we can change this to subtract or add a negative. Which one's the smaller, the 3y or the negative 2? Well, the negative 2 is, so we're going to add, we can't even do our chart yet, but we get all the y's on one side. So we're going to add 2y to both sides. And we're still, our 10x, we still have our 10x. Our 3y plus 2y is 5y equals, and we have 4, and then our negative 2y and our plus 2y cancel each other out. All right, so now we have y by itself, and we're going to determine what is happening to the y here. Y is being times by 5. Now we can do our chart chart. Being multiplied by 5. We have one y left, it's being multiplied by 5, and then we're adding 10x. All right? We're going to do the same as we've always done, and go from the bottom up to the opposite operation backwards. So we need to subtract 10x from both sides. Minus 10x. And over here, oh, it's not a like term with the 4, so I'm going to write it behind it. Minus 10x. Our 10x's cancel, and we're left with 5y equals 4 minus 10x. Some people at that point could maybe see that, oh, let's put it in slope. Oh, wait, we're not done yet. We got to go a little bit more first. Sorry. But some people could start putting it in slope-intercept form already at that point, but I want to make sure we finish here with our operation here. We already did the opposite of that one. Now we need to do the opposite of multiplying by 5, which is dividing by 5. Got to do both sides. And remember, it's easier to do each one separately. Okay? Remember that this subtract is the same as adding a negative. So 5 divided 5 is 1, and y equals 4 over 5. Fractions are fine. We're going to leave it right like that. And we're going to have plus negative 10x divided 5 is negative 2x. All right? Here, this is not quite in slope-intercept form. We have our y equals first. Oh, but now we need to put our x in front here. So let's rewrite this with our y equals. This is a plus. We can switch, but we keep the sign that's with it. The 2x is a negative 2x. And then plus 4x. And it is just fine to have fractions, and our answer is in slope-intercept form. All right, this is level 4, and you're going to have, there's one on the assignment, but if you use this box, it makes the level 4s really not so bad. Okay, this is asking us to solve for x. So x is what I'm looking for, and I'm going to just do my chart like always, and I can see that x is being multiplied by 4. So I'm putting down what's happening. It's being multiplied by 4. Well, I'm going to undo that by doing the opposite operation. I'm going to solve, and whatever we're doing with one side, I'm going to divide. The opposite of times 4 is divide 4. I'm going to do that on both sides of the equation. We know that 4 divided 4 is 1. So here on the right side, we're just left with x. And over here, p divided 4. And there is our answer. We solved for x. X is p over 4. All right? The next one, if we use these chore charts, they make these not so bad at all. This one, we need to solve for L. Okay? So we're looking here at our L. L is being multiplied by 2 is the first thing that's happening. We're being multiplied by 2. After it multiplies by 2, then we're adding 2w. All right? We want to solve this by doing the opposite operations, and we want to go backwards. Start at the bottom and go up. All right? So we added 2w. We need to do the opposite of that, which is subtract 2w. Remember our fence or our force field. We're going to subtract 2w. I'm going to subtract it from the like term over here. Oh, is p a like term with a w? It's not. So I'm going to subtract it. I'm going to kind of write it like that because I'm going to rewrite it and have it look better. I'm going to have our p minus 2w. Okay, here's our equal sign. And this 2w minus 2w cancels, so we're left with 2l. Well, we completed that chore. Then now we need to do the opposite of times 2, which is divide 2. We're going to divide everything by 2. Remember, we can write it as separate, like this, or we can even write this all the way like that. Both ways work, and we can show both ways. If we divide by 2 and divide by 2, 2 divided 2 is equal to 1, so we have our L. And here we can just write our answer like this, P minus 2W over 2. Now, if we would have done it separate, I'll show you that way as well. Remember, these are level 4, so don't stress, they're not too bad. Okay. If we would have done it separate, we would have had over 2 and over 2 right here. And so P over 2 is just P over 2. And then this is 2 negative, well, we can change that to add and negative. We can still add. This negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1 W. And the 2 is out. So this can be easily written as this negative 1. We don't have to write the 1, and it can be just a subtract W equals L. And that is our lesson for today. And have a good day.